Welcome to this month's edition of Third Eye View with me, Phil Roberts, and my colleague Claire Rees. Every month we look at what's really happening in the UK fin crime landscape. So Claire, it's fair to say that 2025 was a busy year in the fin crime world. What are your thoughts on what 2026 has in store for us?
In a nutshell, Phil, more of the same. It was extremely busy last year and there are no signs to suggest a slowdown for 2026. Today, I thought we would go through a quick forward look of some of the key themes for the year ahead. Firstly, the reform of the AML supervision regime in the UK. So the FCA are due to become the single regulator for professional services. The consultation is now closed. The feedback is under consideration, but we should note that in late December, the Law Society announced that they strongly opposed the change, citing a number of strategic risks and no proven benefits. The Law Society raised concerns about the speed of change as well as the protection of client confidentiality, specifically relating to SARS. The consultation closed on Christmas Eve, 24th of December, and HM Treasury are now analysing all responses. So we are keeping an eye open for an update, which will be published. So that's really just one to watch for now.
Yeah, and what I find interesting here, Claire, is it feels less like technical reform, more like a philosophical shift from sector-led supervision, as we've always had, to a more centralised control. Do you think that the resistance we're seeing is really about operational risk or about trusting how SAR data would be handled under a single supervisor?
I think there's an element of both in there, Phil. The point raised by the Law Society about the speed of change is valid as well. Certainly, it felt like a bolt from the blue. So I guess, yes, I agree, but we'll just have to wait and see what the responses look like from HMT in due course. So the next 2026 item on my list is actually technically 2027, but we are seeing some of the practical implications at the moment. So 2027, the UK is due for its next FATF mutual evaluation. So the forthcoming round is driving a visible readiness programme across government and supervisors and law enforcement and industry. Key theme being that the FATF methodology is putting more weight on effectiveness rather than just having rules in place. So it's more about evidencing that the rules are effective than saying, here's our tick box. There's technically no action for regulated firms to take on this at this stage. The timeline is that the evaluation will be 2027, likely published in 2028.
Cool. And I guess this shift towards effectiveness over existence, quote unquote, feels significant. From your perspective, are firms genuinely equipped to evidence outcomes, or are many still optimized for ticking those regulatory boxes rather than actually proving real world impact?
I think actually firms are probably ahead of maybe the regulators and the government on this one. I think the financial services industry, particularly since the introduction of the conduct risk framework, has become much more effective at demonstrating outcomes. And I think the conversations that I hear when I talk to clients and prospects are very much about doing the right thing and being able to evidence that rather than a tick in a box. So I actually feel as if certainly financial services are ahead of the game on this one. And I don't anticipate that anything that we see coming out of central government or the regulators is going to particularly shift that any further. I think the firms are already in a really good position.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So next up is changes to the Economic Crime Levy, which were announced in last year's autumn budget. From the 1st of April this year, changes will reflect the levy band structure, so increasing the amounts payable, unsurprisingly. The current large band is being split into two, with the result being higher levy amounts. So this will particularly hit those with very large UK revenues. They will have quite a hike. No changes to the scope or the ongoing administration of the levy, but it is worth firms checking the impact to them, their own calculations, and to make sure that their financial planning includes increases for the next financial year.
Yeah, and what strikes me here is that this quietly changes the economics of compliance. For larger firms especially, the levy is no longer just a cost of regulation. It's starting to feel like a strategic financial consideration. Do you think this pushes boards to take it slightly more seriously, if that's the right tone of phrase with regard to economic crime risk?
I mean, there may be some firms, yes, that still need to keep being pointed in the right direction. But again, similar to my last answer, Phil, I actually think that financial services firms are in a strong position. We've seen a lot of action from the regulators, and I think controls, processes, and overall awareness of financial crime is strong and in a good position. So this is just another cost of doing business, giving firms access to the resources to support them. Last but not least, we can't not talk about geopolitical uncertainty in the world these days, and there are likely to be significant changes ahead in the sanctions world. By the time this clip has been edited and gone out, we may have seen all sorts of different changes. Recently, we've seen some naval blockades, we've seen tanker seizures, we're seeing sanctions being used much more assertively and aggressively. I think this will continue to be reflected in economic and legal measures. So basically, sanctions being deployed as political tools, which is a shift from where they've been used as punitive measures in the past. Implication here for firms is that they need to make sure the sanctions screenings, sanction processes are robust. Any reliance on any manual processes need to account for the potential volatile future, and wherever possible, automation is a much stronger option to ensure ongoing compliance.
It feels a bit like an inflection point, doesn't it? So sanctions are no longer slow-moving lists. They're dynamic geopolitical instruments almost. As you've just alluded to, in this new environment, this new world that we now live in, is manual screening defensible from a risk perspective anymore?
It's a really tricky question. It would be a significant risk to undertake for manual screening. Every firm is going to have to assess their controls based on their own risk profile, but definitely I feel in the coming months and years, we are going to see regular and significant updates to sanctions, and automating those processes is going to likely become significantly more cost effective than having a person whose job is simply to update sanction lists. There will be a tipping point for some firms. I think the vast majority, certainly the larger firms, already automate. So this is potentially going to cause some headaches for smaller firms who maybe don't have the resources, the expertise, the in-house knowledge to automate processes. So another one to watch, really.
Indeed. Excellent. Well, I think that is a wrap for this month. So thank you everyone for tuning in. You can find links to everything we've talked about today in the blog that accompanies this episode. And as always, if you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, everyone. And don't forget to like and share this. Phil and I will be back in a couple of weeks to update you all again with ThirdEye View.